Hi everyone, I'm Nico Levo, and I absolutely love MCDM's Draw Steal system. It's tactical, engaging, and honestly, just a ton of fun to run. Thing is, at the time of this recording, there's no character sheet for Draw Steal on Roll20. There are some folks in the community who are building one, but for those of you who want to play sooner rather than later, this video will serve as a stopgap until a sheet is available. And when all is said and done, you'll have this little floating character palette. You'll be able to make power rolls for your character. You'll be able to make tests, recover stamina, and gain heroic resources. Now, we will be using mods for this, so a pro account is required to do what I'm about to show you. Before we dive in, I'd just like to thank Roll20 for sponsoring this video. Now there's a chunk of setup work we need to do to make all this happen, and what we're doing today builds on what we did in the last video, so if you haven't watched that video yet, you should go check it out now. But we're going to need to add some functionality to our hero resources sheet, we're going to need to create a script cards library, and we'll need to set up all the abilities for our characters. And I'm going to walk you through how to do this, but as in the last video, I'm not going to explain the code line by line just because there's so much of it that it would take hours to explain. Alright, let's dive in. So to start things out, we need to install some mods in our game. So let's go over to the API scripts page in our game, and like we talked about in the last video, you want to have Kurt Jagers' script cards mod installed, as most of what we do today will rely on that mod. But then we're also going to install Reporter. And Reporter comes to us from the amazing Keith Curtis, and Reporter is what's going to allow us to create that little floating character palette window that you saw in the intro. So let's just go ahead, let's add that script into our game as well. And when we come back into our game, Reporter is going to have popped up this message in here, and it's asking you basically what character sheet you're using. And it has a handful of sheets listed here by default. Because we're not using any of these sheets, we're going to click Other. And with that done, we're ready to move on. Now, in the last video, we set up this hero resources sheet, which provides buttons that allows players to see how many hero tokens they have, to spend those hero tokens, and to see how many victories they've earned. What we're going to do now is extend the features of this sheet and turn it into a macro mule. A macro mule is a shared character sheet that contains common operations that all players can use. And without this, we'd have to have a copy of the same macro for each player, and then if we needed to change something, we'd have to change it for every player, and that'd be a bear to maintain. So this is just going to make life easier. So last time, when we initially set this up, we had all of these abilities get created, but we only populated a handful of them, like the hero token count, the hero tokens, and the victory count, basically the buttons that we have up the top here. So what we want to do now is fill in the rest of these abilities. And you can find the code for those out here on the hero resources sheet GitHub. There's a link down in the video description. So for example, I could come down here, I would find the trained skill section, copy that, come in here, open up trained skill, paste in the code, save, and then continue that for all of the other abilities on the sheet. All right, so I've fast forwarded a little bit. You can see now that I've got all of my abilities filled in. So I'm just going to go ahead and close all these up. And with that done, we're finished with the hero resources sheet for the time being. So we're just going to go ahead and close that. The next thing we're going to do is set up a script cards library in our game to handle power rolls. And power rolls are what you use whenever you're attempting a task in the game, whether it's making an attack or trying to sneak past a guard or scale a wall or resist a poison effect. All of those sorts of things are handled via power rolls, and this library will allow us to have our characters perform those power rolls. So what we want to do is create a handout, and we're going to name this handout Script Cards Library Draw Steal. And the casing here is very important. So script cards has to be capital S, capital C, all one word, then a space, capital L in library, a space, and then capital D, capital S in Draw Steal. The code for this library is here in the hero resources sheet GitHub. What you want to do is find the Draw Steal library here. And what I'm going to suggest you do is go into the raw section here and copy all this, and then jump back into the game in your description section, paste that code in, and then in here, again, Control A to highlight everything, and then set the style to normal. Basically, we don't want any formatting to come over either from GitHub or from anywhere else. If there's rogue HTML tags that get copied into this thing, it will completely mess stuff up. So basically, just make sure you got this in here as plainly formatted as possible. Save changes, and that's it. That's all we need to do for this. We're going to use this library later on. I just want to get it set up so it's ready to go when we need it. So now what we want to do is set up a character sheet for our PCs and NPCs. So head over to your journal again and create a new character, and we're going to name this character blank character sheet. Save changes, and then what we want to do is grab that blank character sheet and drag it out onto the battlefield. Next, head over to this GitHub page, the PC Sheet Setup GitHub, link down in the video description, and grab the PC Sheet Setup code that you see right here. Copy that back into our game, highlight our blank sheet token, paste in the code, and run. And now what that's done is added a whole bunch of attributes and abilities to our sheet. So over here on the left, these are all of the characteristics that you need to play Draw Steel. You've got your character's might, agility, reason, the languages they have, the skills they have, and so on. So all of that is here. And then we've also got a bunch of predefined abilities that refer back to our hero resources sheet. So this is us using that macro mule. Instead of putting the code for the gain surge ability in this blank sheet, we just refer to the macro mule, and that way if we ever need to make a change to the gain surge code, we just change it in the macro mule rather than having to change it on each individual character sheet. So now, anytime we want to create a new character or monster in our game, we can just duplicate this blank character sheet and then fill in our character's details on that sheet. So let's do that. I'm going to delete the blank character sheet token off the battlefield. I'm going to open up the blank character sheet here. Let's edit this. And I'm going to say that my character's name is Galvin, and I'm going to save changes here. And then what I'm going to do is go over to the attributes and abilities section, and I'm just going to fill in all his stats. And I'm actually going to use the conduit pre-generated character that's available on the MCDM website for the source for all of these stats. So I'm just going to fill in the might, the agility, the reason, all this good stuff into that character sheet that we just set up. Cool. So I fast forwarded a bit. All that information has been filled in now. So let's go ahead and let's close the character sheet. And now let's set up Galvin's token. So I'm going to jump over to the artwork library tab where I already have a token uploaded. I'm just going to drag that onto the battlefield. Let's double click on that to open it up. And we're going to say that this represents Galvin, and then save changes. Now, what we want to do next is go back into our PC setup GitHub page. And there is a token setup routine here. Let's copy that. Select Galvin's token. Run this code. And now what that's done is linked the bars in the token to various elements of the character sheet. And it's also updated the default token for Galvin so that if we drag another Galvin out onto the battlefield, onto a new map, for example, or something, then the token comes out with all the bars and artwork already set up. So now, with the hero token finished being set up, with the library being set up, and with our character's token being set up, we're ready to create that little floating character palette. And so what we're going to do for that is Alt-double-click to open your character's token, go to Attributes and Abilities, and then click Reporter. And what this does is creates a handout called Galvin. So let's tuck the character sheet away, and let's open up Galvin's handout. And this is now that nice little floating character palette. So we can scoot this to the side, and this contains all of the information that we need about our character. So their stamina, their number of recoveries they have, their stats, the skills they have, the languages they have, all of this in a quick little reference card, which is a lot easier to read than the stat list that you see here, especially when we get into things like skills or languages where the text field on the sheet only shows a tiny bit of text, but on the handout we can see everything laid out very cleanly. Additionally, there are some useful links in the handout, so let's tuck the character sheet away for a minute. And this link right here will center your view on your character's token. This link will open your official character sheet. And then these links down here are actually calling the catch breath, trained skill, and untrained skill abilities right from the character sheet. So my thought process here was that things that you would want to use frequently in combat would be placed up here in your token's action bar. And then things that you may use regularly would be down here in the character sheet link. Now, if you find that you're using catch breath more regularly, of course, you can mark it as a token action and then it'll be there for you. So no problem with that. But just that's kind of the insight into my thought process there around which ones I put here versus which ones I put on the token act. Also, when we get into adding our attacks and other special powers, those are going to show up here in the action bar, and there are going to be a lot of those. So that action bar is going to fill up pretty fast. Now, one other thing to mention about the handout is you will need to give this to your player who controls Galvin. So just like you assign a character sheet to a player, you're also going to assign this handout to a player. Just click edit, and then you just need to put it in their journal. It doesn't have to be edited by them. Really, you don't want them to edit anything. You just want them to be able to use the sheet and have it available to them. So now let's take a minute and talk about how we would set up attacks and other special powers. I'm going to swing the pre-generated character sheet over again, and we can see that our conduit has a handful of signature abilities and heroic abilities and free strikes, and what we want to do is have these set up in our character sheet so that we can use them in combat and in other situations. And let's use Blessed Light as our example here. It has a certain set of keywords, what type of action it is, how far it can reach, who it can hit, and then the various tiers of effect that can happen as a result of your roll. So basically what happens is you make a power roll, which is 2d10 plus the value of one of your characteristics. In this case, it's intuition. So we're going to roll 2d10, add 2. And then if the result of that is 11 or lower, we deal 5 holy damage. If it's 12 to 16, we deal 7 holy damage. And if we roll 17 or higher, we deal 10 holy damage. And this is something I absolutely love about this system. How many times have you been playing D&D or Pathfinder and you're waiting for your turn, you're waiting for your turn, you're waiting for your turn, you roll that D20, you get a 3, and you absolutely whiff. And now that's your turn. And you're waiting until the next round. It's a frustrating experience to have that happen. That doesn't happen in Draw Steel. Even if you get the lowest possible result, you still deal damage. You're still advancing somehow in the course of the combat. It's just such a refreshing change. I absolutely love it, and my players have as well. So to set Blessed Light up so that we can use it as an attack in our game, what I'm going to do is go back into our PC setup page, and scroll down until you find the Power Roll template section. And we're going to copy this, and we're going to bring this into our trusty Notepad++ window. I'm going to paste that in, and this is a script card attack template, basically. Think of it like that. And what this is going to allow us to do is fill in all of the information about Blessed Light into that card, and then it will be output in Roll20. So let's scoot this off to the side here. And basically what I'm going to say here is the ability name is going to be Blessed Light. The characteristic is going to be Intuition. Edge and Bane, we don't need to worry about that. The template takes care of that for us. And then we're just going to fill in our keywords. We'll fill in our type, the distance this can reach, the target it can affect, and then the results for each tier. And this ability also has an effect where one ally within distance gains a number of surges equal to the tier outcome of your power roll. So if you got a tier 2 result, they get 2 surges. And then what happens is we're going to make a call into our script cards library, pass in all of this information, and then that will display the script card in the output and let us see the results of our attack. Now, one safety tip here is you can't include semicolons or greater than, less than signs in any of these fields. So sometimes you'll see something like this where it's 5 holy damage, semicolon, A less than 0 prone. In those cases, just replace the semicolons with commas, and the less than or greater than signs, just write like LT or the words less than or something like that, because the script cards and Roll20 parsers will interpret these semicolons and greater than less than signs as something else, and the information won't display properly. So with this done, all we need to do now is copy this code. Let's jump back into our character sheet. We can add a new ability here. We'll call it Blessed Light, paste it in, save it, and make it a token action. And now Blessed Light is available to Galvin. So now let's tuck the character sheet away for a second. And let's say Galvin wants to use Blessed Light. We highlight his token, click Blessed Light, and then we have an option here. What type of roll are we doing? Is it a normal roll? Do we have an edge, meaning we get a bonus? Is there a bane, meaning we're taking a penalty? We'll just say normal, submit. And now here's our output. And we can see that Galvin rolled a 12. And if we hover over this, we see he rolled a 10 plus a 2 for his characteristic, his intuition. He didn't have an edge or a bane on the roll, so we got a 12, which is a tier 2 effect. Here are all our keywords, our type, our distance, all this stuff. The tier 2 effect, as we saw earlier, is 7 holy damage. And then one ally within distance gains a number of surges equal to our tier outcome, which would be a tier 2, so 2 surges. So Blessed Light is working properly. We would then repeat this process for all of Galvin's other abilities. So now to round things out, I want to talk about a couple of the other buttons and links that are available on the token and in the handout. And the first of those is Gain Heroic Resource. In combat, each character gains a heroic resource that can be used to fuel certain abilities. And the amount of heroic resources that they gain depends on their class and a few other things. So for Galvin, he's going to gain 1d3 of his heroic resource every round. So we can type in 1d3 and submit that, and then that heroic resource that you see right here, we got a 1, that gets added to this bar of your character's token. And it also automatically refreshes the handout when you gain heroic resources. However, when you spend them, so like let's say Galvin spends this 1, that doesn't automatically refresh. So you need to click the refresh button here in the handout to get that to reload. Now, is it possible for me to code it so that it would reload this when that happened? Yes, but remember, this is a stopgap for when a real character sheet is created, so I didn't want to go too crazy here. That Gain Heroic Resources button will also support expressions. So in the very first round of combat, you gain heroic resources equal to 1d3 plus your current number of victories. So we see here that we have 3 victories. So I'm going to have Galvin generate 1d3 plus 3. And then that gives us 5 heroic resources. So we can see that right there. We rolled a 2. We got 2 plus 3, which is 5. The 5 was added to our sheet, and that did refresh. So that's how you can track your heroic resources in combat. Surges work the same way. You click Gain Surge. How many surges are you gaining? Let's say you gain 2. Submit that, and there we go. Our surges are reflected in this bubble. And again, you can just deduct them as you go along. Moving down into the links that are in the handout, Catch Breath is something you can do to recover stamina, which is like your HP. So let's say that Galvin has taken some damage here. He's down to 7 stamina. He can catch breath, and what that's going to do is recover a certain amount of stamina, apply that to his token, and then it refreshes his stamina here in the handout, and it also reduces the number of recoveries he has by 1, because effectively you're spending a recovery in order to catch your breath and regain that stamina. And then we have trained skill and untrained skill. So at some point, your director is going to ask you to make a test. Maybe you're trying to dodge out of the way of a fireball, or you're trying to scale a wall or something like that. So what you're going to be doing is making a roll, adding one of your characteristics to it, and then if you have a skill that applies to this situation, so like Galvin has the climb skill, so if he's trying to scale a wall, he's going to roll 2d10, add his might, and his climb. So we'd say trained skill, let's say it's a normal roll, submit that. He's going to choose his might characteristic, and then we see down here that his output was a tier 3 effect because he rolled a 16, he has a 1 for his characteristic, which was might, and then a +2 because he has the climb skill. So that gave him a 19, and a tier 3 result is the highest result that he could get, so Galvin just shimmies right up that wall like a spider, no problem. But if there isn't a skill that applies to the situation in question, then we're just going to say, okay, again, is it a normal roll? Is it an edge? Is it a bane? What characteristic are we using? And that's it. There is no skill bonus that gets applied here. Again, here we see it's just the 14 natural roll plus our characteristic, which again was might, but there is no skill bonus being included. So you can use these trained skill and untrained skill links in order to make rolls for any tests that occur during your adventures. And then one thing that I mentioned in the other video was about the end turn ability here. You can see I've got that set up automatically now on Galvin's character sheet. So you can put this as a token action for your players, or they can come in and they can tick the show in macro bar box, which will put the end turn button down the bottom of the screen. Personally, I prefer this option because then you don't accidentally hit the end turn button while you're looking to click one of your attacks, but only the player has the ability to add something to their macro bar. If you tick this, it puts it in yours, but it doesn't show up on theirs. Whereas if the token action box is ticked, then anybody who clicks on the token is going to get that item in the bar. So your choice there in terms of how you or your players would like to set things up, but just wanted to mention that so that you know that you have that available as well. So there you have it, a stopgap solution until a character sheet for Draw Steal is available in Roll20. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing. And until next time, folks, happy gaming.